Hey guys, tonight we begin with Cain and Abel, Genesis 4. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey. In the gentle beginning of human memory, when the world was still young and the morning dew held mysteries we can barely imagine, there lived the first family. Adam and Eve had been blessed with sons, and in this quiet tale we find ourselves walking alongside two brothers whose names have echoed through countless generations. The elder was called Cain, his hands strong and weathered from working the rich, dark soil. Each morning he would rise with the sun, feeling the cool earth beneath his feet as he tended his crops. The younger brother was Abel, gentle and thoughtful, who found his calling among the flocks of sheep that dotted the hillsides like soft clouds resting on green meadows. Picture this ancient landscape, where the air was cleaner and the silence deeper. Rolling hills stretched endlessly under vast skies, and the brothers moved through their days with a rhythm as old as time itself. Cain would bend over his growing plants, watching tiny green shoots push through the earth, while Abel led his woolly chargers to sweet grass and cool streams. Their world was simpler then, measured not by clocks, but by the gentle turning of seasons, the soft bleating of lambs, and the whispered prayers that rose like incense toward heaven. The brothers grew into their rhythms, each finding purpose in their chosen paths. Cain's hands became skilled with soil and seed, learning the gentle art of coaxing life from earth. He would rise before dawn, when the air held that soft coolness that plants seem to love, and walk among his growing fields with quiet satisfaction. Abel's days began differently, with the soft bleating of sheep calling him to pasture. His flock knew his voice, trusted his guidance. He led them to fresh grass and cool streams, watching over them with the patience that comes naturally to those who understand the gentle needs of living things. Time moved peacefully in this pattern, seasons turning like pages in a well-loved book. The brothers learned that their work was more than mere survival. It was participation in something larger, something that connected them to the very source of life itself. In their hearts, gratitude began to stir. They had been given much. The earth that yielded its bounty, the animals that thrived under careful tending, the knowledge to work with their hands. This gratitude grew quietly, like dawn light spreading across still water, until it demanded expression. So it was that both brothers, moved by the same gentle impulse, decided to offer gifts. Not because they were commanded to, but because thankfulness had filled their hearts to overflowing. Cain gathered the finest fruits of his harvest grain, golden as morning light, fruit sweet with summer's warmth. Abel chose a young lamb, perfect and unblemished, from among his flock. They built their altars with reverent hands, arranging stones with care, preparing their offerings with the tenderness of hearts genuinely moved by love. The gentle rhythm of seasons continued in this early world, and with each passing moon, the two brothers found their paths diverging like streams flowing down opposite sides of a mountain. Cain's hands grew skilled with the plough, his fingers learning the subtle art of coaxing life from soil. Abel's voice became familiar to every sheep in his care, his presence a comfort that drew the flock to peaceful rest. In time, both brothers came to understand that their Creator desired offerings from their work. This was not a burden, but a natural expression of gratitude, like a child bringing a flower to a beloved parent. The earth itself seemed to whisper this truth during the quiet hours of dawn and dusk. Cain gathered the fruits of his labor, selecting from his harvest with the same practical care he brought to all his tasks. The grain was good, the vegetables adequate for the season's yield. He arranged them thoughtfully, his offering representing the steady, dependable work of his hands. Abel approached this sacred moment differently. He moved among his flock with quiet reverence, his eyes seeking not just any lamb, but the finest among them, the one whose wool gleamed whitest in the morning light, whose step held the most grace. This was his gift of gratitude, chosen with love and careful attention. When the time came to present their offerings, something profound occurred. The Lord's favor rested upon Abel's gift in a way that was unmistakable yet gentle, like sunlight breaking through clouds to warm a particular meadow. The divine preference was clear, though spoken in the quiet language of the Spirit rather than words. Something shifts in Cain's heart as the days pass. The morning light that once filled him with purpose now feels heavy against his shoulders. He watches his brother Abel moving through the fields with that same gentle confidence, speaking softly to the sheep, his hands steady and sure as he tends to their needs. The seeds Cain planted weeks ago have sprouted into neat rows of green, pushing through the dark earth toward the sun. His crops are growing well, yet satisfaction feels distant now. Each time he sees Abel's peaceful expression, something dark stirs within him. A shadow that whispers questions he doesn't want to hear. Why did the smoke from Abel's altar rise straight and true, while his own offering seemed to scatter on the wind? The memory returns again and again, like a stone in his sandal that he cannot shake free. He tries to push the thoughts away, focusing instead on the rhythm of his work, the feel of soil beneath his fingernails, the familiar weight of his tools. But the shadow grows stronger. It speaks of unfairness, of favor shown to one brother but not the other. It suggests that Abel's success comes too easily, that shepherding requires less skill than the careful cultivation of crops. The whispers grow louder during the quiet hours, when the sun hangs low and the fields stretch empty around him. Cain finds himself watching Abel more closely now, studying his brother's movements, the way he speaks to their parents, the contentment that seems to flow from him like water from a spring. The earth that once felt like a partner now seems to resist his touch. His shoulders ache more than before, and the work that once brought him joy feels like a burden he must carry alone. The shadow whispers that this too is unfair, that he deserves better, that something must be done to balance the scales. As evening approaches, Cain straightens slowly, his back protesting the long hours bent over his crops. In the distance, he can hear Abel calling to the sheep, his voice carrying easily across the valley. The sound that once brought him comfort now feels like a reminder of everything he lacks. The morning sun climbs higher over the ancient landscape as Cain makes his way toward the field where Abel tends his flock. His footsteps fall heavy on the dusty path, each one carrying the weight of his troubled heart. The air is still warm from the previous day, and a gentle breeze stirs the wild grasses that grow along the edges of the cultivated land. In the distance, Abel's voice can be heard, soft and melodic, as he calls to his sheep. The sound drifts across the open spaces like a lullaby, mingling with the quiet bleating of the animals who know and trust their shepherd. Abel moves among them with the same gentle care he has always shown, his hands steady as he guides a wandering lamb back to the fold. Cain pauses at the edge of the field, watching his younger brother in silence. The morning light catches the dust motes floating in the air between them, creating tiny golden sparks that dance and shimmer before settling back to earth. Here, in this quiet place between the tilled soil and the grazing land, the two worlds of the brothers meet. Abel looks up, shading his eyes with his hand, and sees Cain approaching. A smile crosses his face, warm and welcoming as always. He raises his hand in greeting, his voice carrying across the field with the same gentleness he uses when calling to his sheep. The moment stretches between them, peaceful and still, like the calm surface of a pond before the first stone breaks the reflection. The field holds its breath, waiting, as the two brothers draw closer together under the vast morning sky. The moment arrives with the weight of inevitability, yet it unfolds quietly in the gentle afternoon light. Cain's hand, trembling with emotions he cannot name, reaches for a stone among the scattered rocks of the field. The earth beneath his feet feels different now, as if it knows what is about to happen, as if the very ground holds its breath. Abel stands nearby, perhaps watching the clouds drift across the sky, unaware of the storm building in his brother's heart. The sheep continue their peaceful grazing, their soft bleating, a tender counterpoint to the tension that hangs in the air like morning mist. Cain's fingers close around the stone, its surface smooth and worn by countless seasons of rain and sun. In this moment, time seems to slow, each heartbeat echoing like distant thunder. The weight of the stone feels immense, not just in his palm but in his soul, carrying with it the weight of choice, of consequence, of a path that once taken cannot be undone. The field around them remains serene, wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze, birds calling softly from the nearby trees. Nature itself seems to whisper a gentle warning, but the sound is lost in the rushing of blood through Cain's ears, lost in the darkness that has grown from a seed of jealousy into something far more terrible. Abel turns, perhaps sensing his brother's presence, perhaps about to speak words of kindness that might have changed everything. But the stone is already in motion, already carrying with it the end of innocence, the first shadow to fall across the bright morning of the world. The ground beneath where Abel had lain seems different now, as if the earth itself holds memory within its grains of dust and clay. There's a heaviness here, a weight that settles into the soil like morning dew that refuses to lift with the sun's warmth. The blood that was spilled has long since dried, absorbed into the thirsty earth, but something lingers. The very stones seem to whisper of what they witnessed, their surfaces somehow darker, more solemn than before. Even the grass that once grew green and vibrant in this spot now grows sparse and pale, as if the earth struggles to bring forth life from this particular patch of ground. A gentle breeze moves across the field, stirring the dust in small spirals that rise and fall like sighs. The wind carries with it the scent of distant rain, but here, in this place, the air feels still and heavy, pregnant with an invisible sorrow that no rainfall can wash away. Small creatures that once scurried freely through this area now seem to pause, their tiny hearts sensing something their minds cannot understand. They move more quietly here, their steps more careful, as if walking on sacred ground where tragedy has left its mark. The earth holds its secrets close, cradling them in layers of soil and stone, keeping watch over what was lost. In the growing twilight, shadows gather more deeply in this place, as if darkness itself is drawn to remember what happened here beneath the vast and silent sky. The silence that followed Abel's final breath seemed to stretch across the earth like a heavy blanket. Cain stood motionless, his hands still trembling from what he had done. The weight of his actions settled upon him slowly, like morning dew gathering on grass blades. Then, cutting through the stillness, came a voice, not harsh or thunderous, but carrying the weight of all creation within its gentle cadence. It was the voice of the Lord, speaking as he had spoken to Adam and Eve in the cool of the evening. "Cain," the voice called softly, "where is Abel your brother?" The question hung in the air like incense, patient and waiting. Cain's heart hammered against his ribs as he struggled to form words. His mouth felt dry as desert sand, his tongue heavy as stone. "I do not know," Cain replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Then, with growing defiance born of fear, he added, "Am I my brother's keeper?" The words echoed strangely in the quiet field, sounding hollow and brittle. Even as he spoke them, Cain knew they rang false. Deep within his soul, he understood the truth that his lips refused to speak. The Lord's response came with infinite sadness woven through each syllable. "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." Cain's knees began to buckle as the full magnitude of his deed washed over him. The earth beneath his feet, once fertile and welcoming, now seemed to pull away from him, as if the very soil mourned Abel's passing. The morning light filters through the garden as Cain stands before his altar, his jaw set with quiet determination. The smell of burning grain and fruit fills the air, sweet and earthy, yet something feels different this time. His offering burns steadily, the smoke rising in gentle spirals toward the heavens. But Cain's eyes are not on the flames. They're fixed on the distant horizon where his brother Abel tends his flock. The silence stretches long and deep. No divine acknowledgement comes, no sense of acceptance washes over him. The fire crackles softly, consuming his carefully chosen produce, but the familiar warmth of God's pleasure remains absent. Cain's hands clench slowly at his sides, his breathing becoming measured and controlled. He has worked so hard. The soil has yielded its bounty under his careful tending. Each grain of wheat, each piece of fruit has been cultivated with patience and skill. Yet here he stands, watching his offering burn without the blessing he seeks. The unfairness of it settles heavy in his chest, a weight that grows with each passing moment. The wind shifts gently, carrying away the last of the smoke, and still Cain remains. His face has darkened, not with shadow, but with something deeper. The seed of resentment that has been growing quietly in his heart begins to take firmer root. Why should his brother's offering be favored while his own hard work goes unrecognized? The sun climbs higher, warming the earth beneath his feet, but Cain feels only the cool distance between himself and the divine approval he craves. Something fundamental shifts within him today, a turning away that will change everything. The divine presence lingered in that quiet space where Cain stood, trembling. The weight of his actions settled around him like heavy cloth, and in the stillness, God's voice came again, not harsh but filled with ancient sadness. The ground beneath Cain's feet seemed to pulse with the memory of Abel's blood, and he understood that this earth would no longer yield its gentle gifts to his hands. Cain's voice broke the silence, raw with fear. He spoke of wandering, of being hidden from God's face, of becoming a fugitive upon the earth. His words carried the terror of isolation, the dread of being cast out from all he had known. In his confession, he revealed his deepest fear that anyone who found him would strike him down, repaying blood with blood. But even in judgment, mercy flowed like water from a hidden spring. The Lord placed a mark upon Cain, a sign that would shield him from the vengeance of others. This mark was not a brand of shame alone, but a seal of protection, ensuring that though he would wander, he would not perish by another's hand. 7 times over would vengeance come upon any who harmed him. With this mark upon his brow, Cain departed from the presence of the Lord, his footsteps carrying him eastward to the land of Nod. The name itself whispered of wandering, of restless movement beneath endless skies. Here, in this place of exile, he would learn to live with the echoes of his choice, protected yet forever changed by the weight of what had passed between brothers in a field long ago. Cain walks through valleys where wildflowers grow in gentle clusters, their petals soft against the morning dew. The path beneath his feet is worn smooth by countless travelers who have passed this way before him. Each step carries him further from the place he once called home, yet with each mile, something within him begins to shift and settle. The sun moves slowly across the sky, casting long shadows that dance and sway with the breeze. Cain pauses by a stream where the water runs clear and cool, reflecting the clouds that drift overhead like white ships on a blue sea. He cups the water in his hands, feeling its coolness against his palms, and drinks deeply. A small bird lands nearby, its head tilted as it watches him with bright, curious eyes. For a moment, they regard each other in peaceful silence. The bird hops closer, pecking at seeds scattered on the ground, unafraid of this quiet traveler who sits so still beside the water. As evening approaches, Cain finds shelter beneath an ancient oak tree whose branches spread wide and welcoming. The bark is rough against his back, solid and comforting. Above him, leaves whisper secrets to the wind, and the first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. He thinks of the road ahead, not with fear or urgency, but with a quiet acceptance of whatever may come. The night settles around him like a gentle blanket, and somewhere in the distance, he hears the soft call of nightbirds beginning their evening song. Abel's legacy flows like gentle water through the generations that follow. Though his voice was silenced, his righteousness speaks in whispers that carry across time. In the quiet fields where he once tended his flocks, the earth remembers his faithful hands and pure heart. The Lord does not forget the innocent blood that cried out from the ground. Abel's sacrifice, offered in simple faith, becomes the first of many righteous offerings that will echo through the ages. His example of wholehearted devotion creates ripples that spread far beyond his brief time on earth. In the soft evening light, we can imagine how Abel's story becomes a quiet teaching for those who come after. His life, though short, demonstrates that the size of one's deeds matters less than the sincerity of one's heart. The memory of Abel settles into the fabric of human understanding like dew on morning grass. His innocence stands as a gentle reminder that goodness exists in the world, even when darkness threatens to overwhelm. Though violence took his life, his righteousness lives on, speaking of better things to come. As we rest in this peaceful reflection, Abel's legacy wraps around us like a soft blanket. His faithful heart continues to inspire those who seek to live with integrity and offer their best to the divine. In the quiet of this moment, his gentle spirit reminds us that love always outlasts hatred and righteousness endures long after the storm has passed. The burden settles deeper into Cain's shoulders as the days stretch into weeks. Each sunrise brings the same hollow ache, the same weight pressing against his chest. He moves through his daily tasks with mechanical precision, but his heart carries something heavier than stone. The fields that once brought him satisfaction now feel like endless expanses of accusation. Every furrow reminds him of hands that will never again help with the harvest. Every seed planted whispers of a future that feels impossibly distant and strange. In the quiet moments between dawn and full daylight, Cain finds himself pausing at the edge of his land. The boundary between his cultivated rows and the wild places beyond seems to blur, as if the earth itself is uncertain where civilization ends and wilderness begins. The weight of what he has done sits like a stone in his stomach. It's not the sharp, cutting pain of fresh injury, but something duller and more persistent. Something that seems to have woven itself into the very fabric of his being, changing the color of every thought and the texture of every breath. He remembers conversations with Abel that now feel like echoes from another lifetime. Simple words about weather and livestock, about the changing seasons and shared meals. These memories drift through his mind like smoke, precious and impossible to hold. The silence around him feels different now. Not the comfortable quiet of solitude, but something deeper and more complete, as if the world itself has grown more distant, more removed from the simple rhythms that once gave his life meaning and direction. The morning sun finds Cain walking alone through valleys he has never seen before. His feet carry him over smooth stones worn by ancient waters, past clusters of wild barley that sway in the gentle breeze. The world stretches endlessly before him, unmarked by human paths or the familiar boundaries of home. He pauses beside a shallow stream where minnows dart between the shadows of overhanging willows. The water runs clear and cold, reflecting his face back to him as he kneels to drink. For a moment, he studies his reflection, seeing the same eyes that once watched his brother tend the flocks, the same hands that once worked the soil with such hope. The solitude wraps around him like a heavy cloak. No voice calls his name across the fields. No familiar laughter echoes from nearby hills. Even the birds seem to keep their distance, their songs floating down from branches too high to reach. As the day grows warmer, Cain finds shelter beneath a spreading oak tree. Its trunk is massive and ancient, carved with the patient marks of countless seasons. He rests his back against its rough bark and closes his eyes, listening to the whisper of leaves above his head. The tree has stood here long before his first breath, long before his father Adam first walked in Eden. It will remain long after his footsteps have faded from these paths. There is something comforting in this thought, in being held by something so enduring and constant. The afternoon passes slowly, measured only by the shifting patterns of light and shadow on the ground around him. Cain watches insects move through the grass, each following its own invisible purpose. A butterfly lands briefly on his outstretched hand, its wings catching the dappled sunlight before it flutters away toward distant flowers. The land stretches endlessly before Cain, rolling hills covered in tall grasses that bend and sway in the evening breeze. This is Nod, the land of wandering, where the horizon seems to shift with each step forward. The name itself whispers of movement, of never quite settling, never quite finding home in the way he once knew it. Here in this place east of Eden, the light falls differently. It's gentler somehow, filtered through a haze that makes everything appear soft around the edges. The sun hangs lower in the sky, casting long shadows that dance across the plains like memories of another time, another life. Cain's footsteps have worn a path through the grass, though he cannot remember walking it. Time moves strangely in Nod, flowing like honey, thick and golden. Days blend into one another, marked only by the rising and setting of that distant sun. He walks and rests and walks again, carrying with him the weight of what was and the uncertainty of what will be. The earth here is different from the soil he once tended. It yields to his touch, but reluctantly, as if it too remembers. When he kneels to examine the ground, it crumbles between his fingers like ancient stories, like words spoken long ago and half forgotten. Yet there is a promise in this land, a whisper of possibility that drifts on the wind. In the distance, mountains rise like sleeping giants, their peaks touched with clouds that never quite break into rain. Between him and those far places, the land rolls on, patient and eternal, waiting for whatever seed might take root in its reluctant soil. After the weight of loss and the long journey of grief, Adam and Eve found themselves learning to breathe again in their quiet valley. The morning light filtered through olive branches with a gentleness that hadn't been there before, as if the very air understood their need for healing. Eve tended a small garden of herbs near their dwelling, her hands moving with practiced care among the fragrant leaves. The rhythm of this simple work brought her peace, each planted seed a quiet act of faith in tomorrow. Adam worked nearby, his movements slower now, but filled with a different kind of purpose. They spoke less than before, but their silences held understanding rather than emptiness. Sometimes Eve would pause in her work to watch a butterfly dance among the flowers, and Adam would notice how her shoulders had begun to relax, how her breathing had deepened. The seasons continued their ancient dance around them. Spring brought tender shoots that pushed through the earth with gentle determination. Summer offered long, warm evenings when they would sit together, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. In these moments of stillness, they began to remember not just the pain of loss, but the joy that had come before. They spoke softly of Abel's laughter, of his gentle way with the lambs, and slowly these memories became sources of comfort rather than sharp reminders of absence. The earth beneath their feet felt solid again, ready to support whatever new chapters might unfold. Time moved like honey, slow and golden, giving them space to heal at their own pace. And in this gentle passage of days, hope began to take root once more in the fertile soil of their hearts. The memories of that distant time seemed to hover in the evening air like gentle mist. We can almost feel the weight of those early days, when the world was still learning what it meant to hold both love and loss within its embrace. The land itself remembers, whispering through the rustling leaves and sighing winds that have carried these stories across countless generations. In the quiet spaces between heartbeats, we might imagine how the earth felt beneath the feet of those first brothers, still soft with the newness of creation. The soil that would witness their offerings, their struggles, and ultimately their parting. Even now, in our peaceful moment, we can sense the echoes of their humanity, the same hopes and fears that still move through human hearts today. Time moves differently in these ancient stories, flowing like a slow river that carries both sorrow and understanding. The seasons that passed over Abel's fields and Cain's gardens continue their eternal dance, each sunrise and sunset a gentle reminder that even in the face of great change, the world continues to turn with patient grace. As we rest here in this quiet evening, we can feel connected to something larger than ourselves, to the long line of human experience that stretches back to those first tentative steps into a world full of possibility. The stars that watched over those early days still shine above us tonight, constant witnesses to the endless story of human learning and growth. The gentle darkness around us holds these memories tenderly, like a parent cradling a sleeping child, keeping the lessons of the past safe until we are ready to receive them. The gentle wisdom of these ancient stories settles around us like morning mist on quiet fields. In the space between sleeping and waking, we can feel how the tale of Cain and Abel speaks to something timeless in the human heart. The soft rustling of leaves seems to whisper about choices made in moments of deep feeling, about the weight of emotions that can either lift us or lead us astray. There is something profoundly peaceful about understanding that even in our most difficult moments, we are not alone in our struggles. The story reminds us that anger, jealousy, and disappointment are as old as humanity itself. Yet within these challenges lie opportunities for growth, for choosing compassion over bitterness, for finding our way back to what truly matters. The cool evening air carries with it a sense of acceptance, a gentle acknowledgement that being human means wrestling with complex emotions. We can breathe deeply, knowing that each day offers us new chances to respond with kindness, to choose connection over isolation, to tend our hearts as carefully as a shepherd tends his flock. As we rest in this quiet space, we can let go of the day's tensions and simply be present with these timeless truths. Here in this peaceful moment, we can simply allow ourselves to be held by the ancient wisdom that speaks of love, forgiveness, and the endless possibility of beginning again. In the quiet spaces between heartbeats, where time moves like honey through warm air, we find ourselves dwelling in the realm of divine mercy. The Creator's voice, which once called forth light from darkness, now speaks in whispers softer than morning mist rising from still waters. Here, in this sacred stillness, forgiveness breathes like a gentle tide washing over weathered stones. Each wave carries away the sharp edges of anger, the bitter taste of regret, the weight of choices that cannot be undone. Picture now the way sunlight filters through leaves after a storm has passed, creating patterns of gold and shadow on the forest floor. This is how grace moves through the chambers of the heart, quietly, persistently, transforming what was harsh into something beautiful. The Creator's love works like this too, taking the fragments of our failures and arranging them into something that catches the light. In the garden of divine compassion, there grow flowers that bloom only in the soil of surrender. their petals as soft as silk, their fragrance sweet as honey from the comb. These are the blossoms of hope that spring from the ground where tears have fallen, where knees have bent in humble recognition of our need for mercy. The whisper continues, carried on the breath of eternity, reminding us that even in our darkest moments, we are not beyond the reach of love. This gentle voice speaks our names with tenderness, calling us home to the place where forgiveness flows like a river of light, washing us clean and making us whole once more. The night sky stretched endlessly above the ancient world, a vast canvas of deep indigo dotted with countless points of light. Each star seemed to pulse gently with its own quiet rhythm, creating a celestial symphony that only the most peaceful hearts could hear. The air was still and cool, carrying the faint scent of dried grass and earth that had been warmed by the day's gentle sun. In this timeless moment, the heavens appeared closer somehow, as if the dome of night had lowered itself to embrace the sleeping earth below. The stars hung like scattered diamonds on dark velvet, each one a silent witness to the stories unfolding in the world beneath. Some twinkled with a blue-white brilliance, others glowed with the warm amber of distant suns, all combining to create a tapestry of light that had guided travelers and dreamers since the beginning of time. The moon, a silver crescent hanging low on the horizon, cast its pale light across the landscape, transforming familiar shapes into soft shadows and gentle curves. Night-blooming flowers released their sweet fragrance into the cool air, while somewhere in the distance, the soft call of a night bird added its voice to the evening's quiet chorus. This was the same sky that had watched over the first family, the same stars that had witnessed the joys and sorrows of those early days when the world was young and full of infinite possibility. Under this gentle canopy of light, stories were born, lives were lived, and the eternal dance between earth and heaven continued its slow, peaceful rhythm through the ages. The gentle current carries us forward through centuries that blur like watercolors in rain. Here along these timeless banks, we witness the slow dance of seasons turning into years, years melting into decades. The river remembers everything, yet judges nothing, flowing past the echoes of that first tragedy with the same steady rhythm it has always known. Somewhere in the mist of memory, we can still sense the weight of what transpired. The earth that once drank Abel's blood has been washed by countless rains, softened by the passage of time. Yet the lesson remains, floating like fallen leaves on the water's surface. The river speaks in whispers of redemption, of how even the deepest wounds can heal when touched by the gentle hand of time. It carries stories of brothers who learned to forgive, of families who chose love over jealousy, of offerings given with pure and humble hearts. As we drift along these peaceful waters, we feel the soft embrace of understanding. The mistakes of the past need not define the future. Each sunrise brings new possibilities, each gentle wave carries away another fragment of old pain. The banks are lined with willows that bend gracefully toward the water, their branches creating natural curtains of green. Small fish dart through the shallows, their silver scales catching fragments of filtered sunlight. Everything here moves with purpose, yet without haste, teaching us the wisdom of patience and the beauty of gentle acceptance. Here, in this sacred space between memory and hope, we find the peace that comes from knowing that every story, even the most difficult ones, serves a purpose in the greater tapestry of existence. In the quiet hours that followed, something stirred within the human heart that had not been there before. It was subtle at first, like the first pale light that touches the horizon before dawn truly breaks. This was the beginning of understanding, the slow recognition that choices carry weight beyond their immediate moment. The earth itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. The very soil that had received Abel's blood now lay still under the gentle touch of morning dew. Each droplet caught the soft light, creating tiny mirrors that reflected not just the sky above, but something deeper, the promise that even in the darkest moments, renewal remains possible. Cain walked through landscapes that seemed both familiar and strange. His feet found paths he had never taken, leading him toward places his heart had never imagined. The burden he carried was not just the weight of his actions, but the gradual awakening to what it meant to be truly human, to be capable of both great harm and great healing. In the distance, shepherds tended their flocks with quiet devotion, their voices carrying gentle songs across the hills. These were Abel's spiritual descendants, those who would carry forward the practice of offering their best to the divine. Their presence spoke of continuity, of life persisting even when individual lives are cut short. The wind carried with it the scent of growing things, new grass pushing through soil, fruit trees beginning to bud, the eternal cycle of seasons that speaks to deeper rhythms. This was the world's way of whispering that redemption is always possible, that even the most broken ground can nurture new growth. As evening approached, the sky painted itself in gentle purples and soft golds, each color bleeding slowly into the next. In this peaceful transition from day to night, there was a lesson about the patient work of healing, about how the most profound changes happen gradually, almost imperceptibly. The stars began to appear, one by one, like promises written in light across the darkness. Each point of brightness spoke of guidance available to all who would lift their eyes and look beyond their immediate circumstances. In this vast display, there was both humility and hope, the recognition that individual struggles are part of a much larger story. The moon hangs full and luminous above the sleeping settlement, casting everything in soft silver light. Cain finds himself drawn from his dwelling, unable to rest, his feet carrying him along the familiar paths that wind between the gardens and grazing areas his family has cultivated over the years. The night air is cool against his skin, carrying the gentle scents of ripening grain and the distant fragrance of night-blooming flowers. His shadow stretches long across the ground as he walks, a solitary figure moving through the peaceful landscape that has known both joy and sorrow. He pauses beside a small stream that catches the moonlight, its surface rippling gently as it flows over smooth stones. The water speaks in quiet whispers, a constant murmur that seems to carry memories of simpler times when two brothers worked side by side in these very fields. Cain kneels by the water's edge, seeing his reflection wavering in the gentle current. The face that looks back at him appears older somehow, marked by experiences that have changed him in ways he is only beginning to understand. His hands rest on the cool earth, fingers tracing patterns in the soft soil. Around him, the night world continues its quiet rhythms. An owl calls softly from somewhere in the distance, and leaves rustle with the gentle breathing of the evening breeze. The stars above seem to pulse with their own gentle light, each one a distant beacon in the vast darkness. This is a time for quiet contemplation, for allowing the peaceful sounds of night to wash over troubled thoughts. The moon continues its ancient journey across the sky, bathing everything in its serene glow, while Cain remains by the water, finding a moment of stillness in the gentle night. The earth itself seemed to hold its breath as the divine promise settled into the very fabric of creation. In the gentle stillness that followed, there was a sense of something being woven into the natural order, a thread of protection and purpose that would endure through countless generations. The breeze that had carried the Lord's words now moved softly through the grasses, rustling the leaves with a whisper that spoke of mercy. The same earth that had received Abel's blood now seemed to pulse with a different energy, as if the ground itself understood that justice and compassion could walk hand in hand. Cain stood motionless, feeling the weight of the mark upon him, yet sensing too the lightness of unexpected grace. The sun, which had seemed so harsh moments before, now cast a gentler light across the landscape, painting the world in softer hues of gold and amber. Birds began to sing again in the distance, their voices carrying across the fields like a quiet benediction. The sound was peaceful, reassuring, as if nature itself was acknowledging this moment of divine intervention. Even the wind seemed to move with purpose, carrying with it the scent of growing things and the promise of seasons yet to come. In this sacred pause, time seemed to slow, allowing the fullness of the Lord's mercy to settle into every corner of creation. The earth beneath Cain's feet felt solid and welcoming, no longer the source of curse, but a reminder of the one who shapes all things with wisdom and love. The guardian's promise hung in the air like morning mist, gentle yet certain, wrapping around this moment of grace with the tenderness of a father's embrace. The evening air carries the faint scent of jasmine as Abel finds himself drawn to a quiet grove beyond the settlement. Here, where ancient olive trees create a natural sanctuary, he often comes to speak with the Creator in the stillness that follows sunset. The ground beneath his feet is soft with fallen leaves, and somewhere in the distance, the gentle bleating of his flock provides a comforting backdrop to his thoughts. Abel settles himself against the smooth bark of an old tree, his hands resting peacefully in his lap. There are no elaborate rituals here, no complex ceremonies, just a young man seeking connection with the divine in the simplest way possible. His breathing slows as he closes his eyes, feeling the presence of something greater than himself, in the whisper of wind through branches. In this sacred quietude, Abel's heart opens like a flower to morning light. He speaks not with grand words or formal prayers, but with the honest gratitude that flows naturally from his soul. He thanks the Creator for the health of his sheep, for the sweetness of fresh water, for the warmth of family bonds that still hold despite growing tensions. His voice is barely above a whisper, yet it carries the weight of genuine devotion. The stars begin to appear overhead, each one a reminder of the vast mystery that surrounds their small world. Abel feels himself becoming smaller and larger simultaneously, insignificant beneath the endless sky, yet precious enough to be heard by the one who set those very stars in their courses. This paradox brings him deep peace, a sense of belonging to something eternal and beautiful. As the night deepens around him, Abel remains in quiet communion, his spirit lifted by the simple act of speaking truthfully to his Creator. The grove holds his words like a gentle embrace, and in this moment all seems right with the world. The troubles of the day fade into the background, replaced by a profound sense of being known and loved by the divine presence that watches over all creation. The first light of dawn breathes across the eastern hills, soft and golden, like honey poured slowly from heaven's own vessel. The air holds that particular stillness that comes just before the world fully awakens, when dew still clings to every blade of grass and the morning mist rises gently from the valleys below. Abel stirs first, as he always does, his eyes opening naturally to greet the new day. The sleeping chamber is quiet, filled with the peaceful rhythm of his family's breathing. His father Adam rests deeply, one arm draped protectively over Eve, who sleeps with the serene expression of one who has found peace in the night's embrace. Cain sleeps fitfully nearby, his brow slightly furrowed even in slumber, his hands clenched into loose fists against his chest. Abel watches his older brother with gentle concern, wondering what dreams might trouble his rest. The firelight from the previous evening has dimmed to glowing embers, casting dancing shadows that seem to whisper secrets across the earthen walls. Rising carefully so as not to disturb the others, Abel wraps his woolen cloak around his shoulders and steps quietly toward the entrance. The morning air greets him with its crisp embrace, carrying the sweet scent of wild jasmine and the distant sound of water trickling over stones. The sheep are already stirring in their fold, sensing their shepherd's approach. They bleat softly, a sound like gentle music in the crystalline morning air. Abel's heart fills with familiar warmth as he approaches his beloved flock, each animal precious to him, each one known by name and temperament. The sun climbs higher, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, promising another day of simple blessings in this ancient world. The righteous path stretches before us like a quiet river, flowing steadily through valleys of peace and meadows of contentment. This is the way that Abel walked, the way that speaks of harmony between heaven and earth, between the heart and its creator. In the soft morning light, we can almost see him moving through the pastures, his footsteps light upon the dewy grass. There is something different about the way he carries himself, something that speaks of inner stillness. His hands, gentle with the lambs, reflect a heart that has learned to trust in something greater than himself. The path of the just is not marked by grand gestures or loud proclamations. Instead, it whispers through small acts of faithfulness, through offerings given with sincere hearts, through choices made in quiet moments when no one else is watching. Abel's righteousness flows like a gentle stream, clear and pure, reflecting the sky above. We can sense the peace that surrounds him as he tends his flocks. There is no striving here, no desperate grasping for recognition or reward. His work becomes a form of worship, his daily tasks transformed into sacred moments of connection with the divine. The sheep seem to understand this peace, gathering close to him in the evening shadows. This is the ancient way of righteousness, older than temples or ceremonies, rooted in the simple truth of a heart aligned with goodness. It speaks to us across the centuries, inviting us to walk this same gentle path, to find our own quiet rhythm of faithfulness in the midst of life's complexities. In the gentle moments that follow profound realization, there comes a settling of the spirit, like dust motes finding their place in still air. The light of understanding had touched something deep within the human heart, and now it spread outward in quiet ripples, illuminating corners of consciousness that had long remained shadowed. The earth itself seemed to breathe differently now, as if the very ground understood that something fundamental had shifted. Where once there had been only the harsh patterns of envy and competition, now there was space for something gentler to take root. The soil that had witnessed such sorrow was slowly being prepared for new growth. Though this transformation would unfold as gradually as seasons turning. In the peaceful hours that stretched before dawn, when the world rested in that tender space between night and morning, the first stirrings of compassion began to emerge. It was not a dramatic awakening, but rather like the way morning light gradually reveals the landscape, showing familiar territory in an entirely new way. The same hills and valleys remained, but now they were touched with possibility rather than shadowed by regret. This understanding brought with it a profound stillness, the kind that comes only after a long journey finally reaches its destination. The restless energy of striving and struggling began to settle into something more sustainable, more nourishing to the soul. There was no need to rush toward anything now, no urgency to prove or achieve. Instead, there was simply the quiet recognition that healing happens in its own time, in its own gentle way. The light continued to spread, warming places that had grown cold with isolation, softening edges that had become sharp with defensive anger. And in this warming, this softening, the first seeds of renewal were quietly planted, waiting for the right season to bloom. The weight of what he had done settled over Cain like a heavy blanket, pressing down on his shoulders with each step he took away from that fateful place. The morning sun, once warm and welcoming, now felt distant and cold against his skin. Every shadow seemed to whisper his brother's name. Every rustle in the grass echoed with memories of Abel's gentle laughter. His hands, still trembling from the encounter with the Lord, felt foreign to him now. These same hands that had once worked the soil with such hope and determination had become instruments of something he could barely comprehend. The mark upon his forehead was invisible to his touch, yet he felt its presence like a constant reminder of his exile from grace. The familiar paths of his childhood stretched before him, but they no longer felt like home. Each stone, each tree, each bend in the road carried echoes of shared moments with his brother. Here they had raced as children. There they had helped their father tend the flocks, and over there they had sat together watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. Cain's footsteps slowed as he passed the place where Abel used to bring his finest lambs for sacrifice. The altar stones lay scattered now, cold and silent, but in his mind he could still see the smoke rising sweetly toward heaven, carrying with it his brother's pure and grateful heart. The contrast with his own rejected offering felt sharper now, cutting through him like a blade of regret. The birds sang their morning songs, but to Cain they sounded like laments. Even the wind seemed to carry a mournful tone as it moved through the olive groves. Everything reminded him of what he had lost, what he had thrown away in that moment of consuming anger. The brotherhood that had once been his greatest treasure now existed only in memory, and those memories burned with the fire of irreversible loss. The first drops begin to fall, just as the sun reaches its highest point in the sky, each one carrying with it the promise of renewal. The earth, parched and waiting, drinks deeply as the gentle precipitation spreads across the landscape like a soft blessing. In the distance, the mountains seem to exhale as moisture touches their weathered faces, and the valleys below begin to shimmer with the reflection of countless tiny mirrors. Abel finds himself standing at the edge of a quiet meadow, watching as the rain transforms everything it touches. The grass beneath his feet springs back to life, each blade reaching upward with renewed vigor. The flowers that had drooped in the heat now lift their faces toward the sky, their petals glistening with crystal drops that catch and scatter the filtered sunlight. The sound of the rain is like a gentle lullaby, a soft percussion that seems to wash away the dust and weariness of the day. It patters against the leaves of the olive trees, creating a symphony of whispers that blend with the distant murmur of streams beginning to flow once more. The air itself seems cleaner, carrying with it the fresh scent of wet earth and growing things. As Abel walks through this transformed landscape, he notices how the rain brings out colors that had been hidden beneath the dust of drought. The stones along the path reveal deep purples and warm browns, while the bark of the trees shows rich textures that had been obscured. Everything seems more vivid, more alive, as if the world itself is awakening from a long, peaceful sleep. The gentle shower continues, neither hurried nor harsh, but steady and sure in its mission of restoration. It pools in the hollows of rocks, creating tiny mirrors that reflect the soft grey sky above. The sound of water trickling down the hillsides joins the chorus of renewal, a gentle reminder that even in the desert, life finds a way to flourish when nourished with patience and care. The wind carries stories older than memory, whispering through valleys where ancient feet once walked. Tonight it speaks of simpler times, when the world was young and two brothers knew only the rhythm of seasons and the warmth of their parents' love. Abel sits quietly on a hillside, his small flock gathered near. The sheep rest in peaceful clusters, their wool soft in the golden light of evening. He listens to the wind as it moves through the grass, creating gentle waves that ripple across the meadow like water. The sound is almost musical, a quiet symphony that speaks of harmony and contentment. Each blade of grass adds its voice to the chorus, swaying in perfect unison with its neighbors. Abel finds peace in this simple beauty, in the way everything moves together without conflict or competition. His sheep seem to hear the same music. They graze contentedly, occasionally lifting their heads to catch the breeze on their faces. There is no urgency here, no struggle, just the gentle passage of time marked by the wind's soft song. In the distance, Adam and Eve tend their garden, their movements unhurried and purposeful. They too seem to move in harmony with the wind, bending and rising with the natural rhythm of their work. The whole world appears to breathe together, connected by invisible threads of peace. Abel closes his eyes and lets the wind wash over him. In its voice, he hears promises of tomorrow's dawn, of seasons yet to come, of the endless cycle of growth and rest that governs all living things. The wind knows no jealousy, no comparison, only the joy of being exactly what it was created to be. The morning light filters through the tent flaps as Adam stirs from his rest. His weathered hands reach for the leather water skin beside his sleeping mat, and he drinks slowly, savoring the cool liquid. Outside, the familiar sounds of awakening creation drift through the airbirds, greeting the dawn with their gentle songs, the soft rustle of wind through grass. Eve emerges from the inner chamber, her hair loosely braided, carrying a clay bowl filled with fresh berries she gathered the evening before. They sit together in comfortable silence, sharing the simple meal as they have done countless mornings since leaving the garden. The routine brings them peace, this quiet communion before the day's work begins. In the distance, thin columns of smoke rise from the cooking fires of their children and grandchildren. The community continues to grow, spreading across the valley like seeds carried on a gentle breeze. Adam watches the smoke curl upward and remembers the first fire he learned to kindle, how the spark seemed like such a miracle after the warmth of Eden. Seth appears at the tent opening, his own hair now touched with silver. He carries a wooden staff carved with intricate patterns, a gift from his son. His presence brings immediate comfort to his aging parents, his voice soft as he speaks of the day's plans. The fields need tending, the animals require care, and there are tools to repair before the next season arrives. As they talk, children's laughter drifts from the nearby dwellings. In their voices, Adam hears echoes of Abel's joy, sees glimpses of the brother Cain might have been. The future stretches ahead, uncertain but not without hope. The sun climbs higher, painting the valley in shades of gold and green. Work awaits, but for now, they rest in this moment of simple contentment, grateful for the gift of another day under the vast, watching sky. The seasons turn in their eternal dance, and we find ourselves witness to the quiet rhythms that have governed life since the beginning of time. In this gentle valley where Cain and Abel once walked, the earth breathes with the same steady pulse that has marked countless generations. Spring arrives with tender green shoots pushing through the warming soil. The same fields that once knew the careful attention of these two brothers now welcome new growth with patient acceptance. Wildflowers bloom where ancient footsteps once pressed into the earth, their soft petals catching the morning dew like tiny jewels scattered across the landscape. Summer brings the fullness of growth, when the sun climbs high and the air grows thick with the sweet scent of ripening grain. The gentle hills roll away in waves of gold and green, reminding us that life continues its quiet work of renewal and abundance. Birds nest in the old olive trees, their soft songs carrying on the warm breeze. As autumn approaches, the harvest moon rises full and bright, casting its silver light across the valley. The same moon that once looked down upon two brothers now illuminates fields ready for gathering. There is something deeply comforting in this continuity, this endless cycle of planting and reaping, of seasons that come and go with their own unhurried wisdom. Winter settles over the land like a soft blanket, bringing the rest that allows the earth to prepare for another turning of the wheel. Snow may dust the distant mountains, and the air grows crisp and clear. Even in this season of quiet dormancy, there is the promise of spring's return, the assurance that life will begin again. In this eternal rhythm, we find peace, knowing that some things endure beyond our understanding, constant and unchanging as the stars above. The earth receives Abel's form with infinite tenderness, cradling him as a mother cradles her sleeping child. The soil beneath seems to soften, becoming a gentle bed of loam and clay that welcomes his stillness. Small wildflowers begin to emerge around his resting place, their petals soft as whispered prayers, their stems reaching toward the fading light with quiet reverence. Every grain of sand, every particle of dust becomes part of a larger story, one that the earth will carry forward through countless seasons. The limestone beneath holds this memory in its patient heart, while the topsoil wraps around Abel like a blanket woven from generations of fallen leaves. Above, the sky deepens into shades of violet and rose, painting the world in colours that seem to honour Abel's gentle spirit. The evening breeze moves through the grass with extraordinary softness, each blade bending and swaying in a rhythm that speaks of eternal rest. The earth's embrace is complete and unconditional, asking nothing in return but offering everything in its power to give. In this sacred space, where earth and sky meet in perfect harmony, Abel finds his final sanctuary. The soil knows no judgment, only acceptance, and in its depths, peace flows like underground streams that will nurture new life in seasons yet to come. The earth remembers every soul it has welcomed, and Abel's memory becomes part of its eternal song. As evening deepens around the settlement, tiny points of light begin to emerge from the tall grass beyond the garden's edge. The fireflies dance their ancient ritual, blinking in gentle patterns against the darkening sky. Cain sits quietly on a smooth stone, watching their silent ballet with wonder in his eyes. Each firefly carries its own rhythm, its own timing, yet somehow they create a harmony together. Their lights pulse like tiny stars that have descended to earth, weaving through the warm air in graceful spirals. The soft glow reminds Cain of embers from the altar fire, but these lights are gentler, more playful in their movement. Eve approaches and settles beside her son, her presence bringing comfort without words. Together they observe the fireflies dance, mother and child sharing this peaceful moment as the first stars appear overhead. The creatures seem to communicate through their light, sending messages across the meadow in their flickering language. Some fireflies venture closer, their golden glow reflecting in the still water of a nearby stream. They hover above the surface, creating twin lights that shimmer and dance. Cain extends his hand slowly, and one brave firefly alights on his palm, its light pulsing gently against his skin before lifting away again. The night air carries the sweet scent of jasmine and the distant sound of crickets beginning their evening chorus. As the fireflies continue their timeless dance, Cain feels a deep sense of peace settling over him. These small creatures remind him that even in darkness there can be beauty, wonder, and the gentle light that guides us through the night. The night deepens around the settlement, and a profound stillness settles over the land. Even the gentle breeze that stirred the grain earlier has quieted to barely a whisper. The moon hangs full and luminous in the clear sky, casting everything in soft silver light. In this peaceful hour, the world seems to hold its breath. The sheep have gathered close together in their fold, their wool appearing almost luminous in the moonlight. Their breathing creates small puffs of vapor in the cool air, and they shift occasionally with soft rustling sounds against the earth. The grain fields stretch endlessly under the starlit sky, each stalk standing perfectly still now. The heads of wheat catch the moonlight like tiny lanterns scattered across the landscape. There's something deeply comforting about this abundance, these countless seeds that will eventually become bread and sustenance. Near the edge of the settlement, a small spring bubbles quietly from the rocks. The water catches the starlight as it flows, creating gentle music that seems to harmonize with the night itself. This is the same spring where families draw water each morning, where children play during the warmth of day. The air carries the faint scent of earth and growing things, of wool and wood smoke from banked fires. These are the familiar fragrances of home, of safety, of a world where people know their place and purpose. In the distance, an owl calls softly to its mate, and somewhere a cricket begins its gentle song. This is the hour when the boundary between day and night becomes a bridge, when the mind naturally turns inward, when the heart finds its quiet rhythm. The darkness is not empty, but full of peace, not silent, but filled with the gentle sounds of a world at rest. In the depths of sleep, Cain finds himself walking through a garden that seems both familiar and strange. The air carries the scent of jasmine and cedar, and golden light filters through leaves that shimmer like precious stones. His footsteps make no sound on the soft earth beneath him. As he moves deeper into this dreamscape, he sees a figure approaching from the distance. The silhouette is unmistakable, and Cain's heart begins to race with recognition. It is Abel, but not as he last saw him. This Abel radiates peace. his face serene and unmarked by the violence that had separated them. They stand facing each other in a clearing where wildflowers sway in a gentle breeze. No words pass between them at first, only the profound silence that holds both sorrow and possibility. Abel's eyes reflect understanding rather than accusation, and slowly he extends his hand toward his brother. Cain hesitates, his own hand trembling as he reaches out. When their fingers touch, warmth spreads through him like water flowing over parched ground. In this moment, guilt begins to transform into something else, something that feels almost like hope. The garden around them pulses with life. Bees hum among the blossoms, and somewhere in the distance, a stream babbles softly over smooth stones. Time seems suspended here, allowing healing to unfold in ways that the waking world cannot permit. Abel speaks, his voice carrying the gentleness of morning rain. The words are simple, yet they carry the weight of forgiveness that Cain had never dared to imagine possible. They walk together now, two brothers finding their way back to each other through the landscape of dreams. The golden light grows softer, wrapping around them like a blessing as they move deeper into this realm where all wounds can find their healing. The ancient voices grow softer now, their wisdom settling like evening mist across the quiet landscape. These are the whispers that have carried through countless generations, the gentle murmur of understanding that flows beneath all human experience. In the stillness, you can almost hear the breath of those who came before, their stories woven into the very fabric of memory. The lessons they learned, the love they shared, the mistakes they made, and the grace they found afterward. All of it drifts on the night air like dandelion seeds seeking new ground. The whisper speaks of patience, of the slow work of healing that happens when we stop rushing toward solutions and simply allow ourselves to be present with what is. It reminds us that every ending contains within it the seed of a new beginning. Every loss, the possibility of unexpected discovery. There is comfort in knowing that others have walked this path before us, that the questions we carry have been carried by countless hearts across the ages. The whisper of the ancients is not urgent or demanding. It is simply there, like starlight, constant and reassuring. The breeze carries their gentle counsel through the darkness, reminding us that we are part of something larger than ourselves, connected to a story that began long before we arrived and will continue long after we have added our own quiet chapter to its pages. Their whisper grows fainter now, blending with the soft sounds of night, becoming one with your own peaceful breathing as you settle deeper into rest. In the depths of that endless night, when all seemed lost and the world lay heavy with sorrow, there remained something that could not be extinguished. A gentle warmth that flickered like the softest candlelight in the chambers of the heart. This was the light that Adam and Eve carried within them, even as they walked through their darkest hour. The light was not born of their own making, but came from something far greater. It was the same light that had once walked with them in the garden during the cool of evening, the same presence that had breathed life into clay and called forth beauty from emptiness. Though they could no longer see it as clearly as before, though their eyes were dimmed by grief and their hearts heavy with loss, the light remained. Eve would sometimes pause in her daily work, her hands stilling as she felt this warmth rise within her chest. It came like a gentle tide, washing over the jagged edges of her pain, not erasing it but somehow making it bearable. In these moments, she would close her eyes and remember that they were not alone in their suffering. There was one who saw, who understood, who carried their burden with them. Adam too would experience these quiet visitations. As he worked the stubborn ground, feeling the resistance of thorns and thistles beneath his hands, he would suddenly sense that familiar presence drawing near. The work would not become easier, but somehow his strength would be renewed. The earth would still yield its produce grudgingly, but hope would bloom again in his heart like the first flowers of spring. Together they learned to recognize these moments of grace, these gentle touches of the divine hand upon their wounded souls. They began to understand that grief and hope could exist side by side, that darkness and light could share the same space without one destroying the other. The light did not chase away all shadows, but it made them less frightening, less final. In the evening hours, when the weight of loss pressed heaviest upon them, they would sit together in the gathering dusk and speak of this light. They would whisper of the promises they had heard, of the hope that had been planted like a seed in the soil of their sorrow. Though they could not see how it would grow or what form it would take, they trusted that it would bloom in its proper season. The sun begins its slow descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in gentle hues of amber and rose. In this quiet moment, as shadows grow longer and the air carries the soft whispers of evening, we find ourselves walking along a path that seems to stretch endlessly before us. The ground beneath our feet is worn smooth by countless footsteps, each one a testament to the journey of reconciliation that so many have taken before us. Here, in this sacred space between earth and sky, we can feel the weight of old grievances beginning to lift. The burden that has pressed upon hearts for so long grows lighter with each gentle step. Wildflowers line the pathway, their petals soft as silk, nodding in the warm breeze that carries the scent of honey and fresh grass. A small stream runs parallel to our path, its waters clear and unhurried. The sound of water flowing over smooth stones creates a melody that seems to wash away the echoes of harsh words and hardened hearts. We pause beside this gentle brook, watching as minnows dart through the shallows, their movements graceful and untroubled. The path continues onward, winding through meadows where sheep graze peacefully, their wool white as clouds. A shepherd sits beneath an olive tree, his staff resting against the trunk, his eyes kind and patient. He watches over his flock with the same gentle care that has always existed, will always exist, in this place where forgiveness flows like the clearest spring water. As twilight approaches, the first stars begin to appear, distant points of light that remind us that peace is not a destination, but a journey, one that continues long after the sun has set and the world has grown still and quiet. The morning light filters through the tent flaps where Cain rests, his breathing shallow and uneven. The weight of his actions has settled deep into his bones, making each movement feel heavy and deliberate. Outside, the world continues its gentle rhythm, birds calling softly to one another. The distant sound of sheep moving through grass, the whisper of wind through the olive trees. Adam sits beside his eldest son, his weathered hands folded in his lap. The lines around his eyes speak of sleepless nights and prayers offered in the darkness. He watches Cain's face, remembering the small boy who once ran through these same fields, chasing butterflies and laughing at the clouds. Eve enters quietly, carrying a small clay bowl filled with cool water and soft cloth. Her movements are careful, motherly, as she settles on the other side of their son. Without words, she begins to gently clean his face, her touch tender despite everything that has transpired. The three of them exist in this quiet space together, removed from the rushing world outside. Time moves differently here, measured not in hours but in heartbeats, in the soft rhythm of breathing, in the gradual healing that comes when love refuses to abandon even the most broken among us. Cain's eyes flutter open, meeting his mother's gaze. In that moment, something passes between them, not words, but understanding. The recognition that mercy often comes dressed in the simplest gestures, in the willingness to remain present when departure would be easier. The tent grows warmer as the sun climbs higher, wrapping this small family in its gentle embrace, holding them in the soft promise of another day. The gentle wisdom of time settles over the ancient landscape like morning dew, bringing with it a profound understanding that transcends the immediate pain of consequence. In this quiet space between what was and what must be, there exists a sacred moment of acceptance that whispers through the soul like a soft breeze through wheat fields. The earth itself seems to exhale slowly, releasing the tension that has held it captive since that fateful day when blood first cried out from the ground. The very soil, which once trembled with the weight of violence, now rests in peaceful acknowledgement of divine justice. Each grain of sand, each blade of grass, each stone along the path, bears witness to this moment of profound recognition. In the stillness, we can almost hear the gentle settling of dust motes in afternoon light, each one finding its place in the natural order of things. The wind moves with purpose, but without urgency, carrying with it the scent of distant rain and the promise of renewal. Birds call softly from their perches, their songs neither mournful nor celebratory, but simply present in the eternal now. The shadows grow longer and softer, creating pools of coolness where weary travelers might rest. Time moves like honey, sweet and slow, allowing every moment to be fully experienced before flowing into the next. The air itself seems to hold a quality of forgiveness, not erasing what has been, but embracing it within the larger tapestry of existence. Stars begin to appear one by one in the deepening sky, each one a point of light that has travelled vast distances to reach this moment of quiet understanding. They shine down with gentle constancy, reminding all who look up that, even in the darkest night, there is always light to guide the way forward. Above the quiet settlement, the moon hangs like a gentle lantern in the darkening sky. Its soft silver light spills across the countryside, painting everything in hushed tones of pearl and shadow. The lunar glow touches the stone walls of humble dwellings, where families gather around flickering oil lamps, their voices a gentle murmur in the evening calm. Children press their faces to small windows, watching the moon's serene journey across the heavens. Their mothers call them softly back to their sleeping mats, where woolen blankets wait to enfold them in warmth. The moonlight streams through gaps in the shutters, creating delicate patterns on earthen floors. In the fields beyond the settlement, the moon's radiance transforms the landscape into something dreamlike. Olive trees stand like silent guardians, their leaves catching fragments of silver light. The wild grasses sway gently in the cool night breeze, creating soft whispers that blend with the distant sound of flowing water. Night creatures begin their quiet songs, the gentle hoot of an owl, the soft rustle of small animals moving through the underbrush. These sounds weave together into nature's lullaby, a peaceful symphony that speaks of rest and renewal. The moon continues its ancient path, watching over this early world with the same gentle presence it has always provided. Its light offers comfort to those who cannot sleep, a reminder that even in darkness there is beauty and peace to be found. Above the quiet fields where Cain and Abel once walked, the stars maintain their ancient vigil. Each pinprick of light has witnessed countless generations, their gentle glow unchanged since the first brothers looked up at the night sky with wonder. The same constellations that guided their evening prayers now cast soft shadows across the empty meadows, creating patterns of light and darkness that shift slowly with the turning of the earth. The North Star holds its steady position, that faithful beacon that has guided travelers for millennia. Around it, the other stars trace their slow, eternal dance, wheeling through the heavens with the patience of ages. They have seen empires rise and fall, watched rivers change their courses, observed forests grow and wither, yet they remain constant in their celestial procession. In the gentle starlight, the grasslands take on a silvery quality, each blade touched with moonbeams that transform the ordinary into something magical. The night air carries the faint scent of wildflowers that bloom in the darkness, their petals opening to catch the dew that will gather before dawn. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird calls softly, its voice blending with the whisper of wind through the grass. The stars remember when this land knew different footsteps, when two brothers walked these same paths under this same sky. They watched those early offerings, saw the smoke rise toward heaven, witnessed both joy and sorrow play out beneath their silent gaze. Now they continue their watch, patient and eternal, holding those memories in their distant light while the world below settles into peaceful sleep. The morning light filters through the wilderness where Cain has wandered for so long, carrying within him the weight of his choices and the promise of divine protection. His footsteps have worn paths through countless valleys, across streams that babble softly in the early dawn, past meadows where wildflowers bloom in gentle profusion. The world around him speaks of continuity, of life persisting through seasons of darkness and emerging into light. In this quiet hour, As dew settles on the grass and birds begin their morning songs, there is something shifting in the very air. The heaviness that has followed Cain seems to lift slightly, like mist rising from a peaceful lake. His breathing becomes deeper, more steady, as if the burden he has carried is slowly transforming into something else entirely. The soft breeze carries scents of cedar and sage, of earth warmed by the sun's first rays. Somewhere in the distance, a stream murmurs its ancient song, the same melody that has comforted wanderers since the beginning of time. Cain's hands, once clenched in anguish, now rest gently at his sides as he walks this path towards something he cannot yet name but feels drawing him forward. The horizon glows with the promise of a new day, and in that glow, mercy extends its hand toward even the most troubled of hearts. This is the dawn of redemption, where grace meets the weary traveler and whispers of hope yet to come. The stream that had begun as barely a whisper among the rocks now flows with gentle purpose, gathering strength from hidden springs and seasonal rains. Its voice has deepened from the soft trickle we first heard to a steady, rhythmic murmur that seems to carry the very essence of peace through the valley. Along its banks, the earth drinks deeply, supporting clusters of tender reeds that sway in the lightest breeze. Their movement creates the softest rustling sound, like silk brushing against silk, adding another layer to the stream's quiet symphony. Small stones, worn smooth by countless seasons of flowing water, line the bottom in patterns that shift and change with each gentle current. The water itself catches fragments of light filtering through the canopy above, creating fleeting sparkles that dance and disappear before your eyes can fully focus on them. These brief moments of brightness seem to mirror the way thoughts drift through a drowsy mind, present one moment and peacefully dissolved the next. Somewhere in the distance, a bird calls once, then settles into silence. The sound seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, absorbed quickly by the soft earth and cushioning leaves. Even the air here feels different, carrying the clean scent of water over stone and the green fragrance of growing things. Your breathing naturally begins to match the rhythm of the flowing water, each exhale releasing a little more of the day's weight, each inhale drawing in the valley's profound tranquility. The stream continues its patient journey, unhurried and constant, carrying you deeper into rest. The evening breeze carries with it the scent of distant rain, moving through the valley where Cain once walked with such purpose. Now the wind moves freely across the abandoned furrows, touching each clod of earth with gentle fingers, as if blessing what was left behind. In this quiet hour, we can almost hear the whispered conversations that once filled this space. The wind seems to remember them, carrying echoes of laughter that once rang out during harvest time, when the work felt meaningful and the future stretched ahead like a golden field. The same breeze that cooled Cain's brow during those long days of planting now dances through the grass that has grown wild where his carefully tended rows once stood. Nature has a way of reclaiming what we leave behind, softening the edges of our struggles with its patient touch. Tonight, as the wind moves through this peaceful valley, it carries no judgment, no harsh words, no weight of disappointment. It simply flows, accepting what was and what is, wrapping the landscape in a gentle embrace that speaks of continuity beyond our human understanding. The grasses bend and sway in this soft caress, creating patterns that shift and change like thoughts drifting through a drowsy mind. Each blade moves with its neighbors in a quiet dance, synchronized yet free, finding harmony in the wind's gentle guidance. As darkness settles more deeply over the valley, the wind's touch becomes even more tender, like a mother's hand smoothing a child's hair. In this moment, all is forgiven, all is peaceful, all is held in the wind's loving caress. The ground beneath Cain's feet feels different now, softer somehow, as if the earth itself has learned to breathe again. Where once there was hardness and resistance, now there is a gentle yielding, a quiet acceptance that speaks of deeper mysteries at work. The soil crumbles easily between his fingers, rich and dark, carrying within it the memory of countless seasons, countless plantings, countless harvests that have come and gone like whispered prayers. He kneels beside a small stream that winds its way through the valley, its waters clear and unhurried, reflecting the pale light of early morning. The sound it makes is barely audible, a soft murmuring that seems to carry words of comfort, of understanding, of a forgiveness that extends beyond human comprehension. Cain cups the water in his hands, feeling its coolness against his palms, and for a moment he sees not his own reflection but something deeper, something that speaks of redemption written in the very fabric of creation. The plants around him seem to lean inward, their leaves rustling with a gentleness that surprises him. Where once he felt the weight of curse and consequence, now there is something lighter, something that suggests the earth remembers not just the violence, but also the tears that followed, the genuine sorrow that waters the ground more deeply than any rain. The morning air carries the scent of growing things, of life persisting and flourishing despite all that has been broken. In this quiet moment, Cain begins to understand that forgiveness is not just a word spoken, but a reality lived, not just a concept grasped, but a truth experienced in the yielding of hard ground, in the gentle flow of water, in the patient growth of green things that know nothing of hatred, but everything of hope. The first pale threads of dawn begin to weave themselves across the eastern horizon, bringing with them a gentle promise of renewal. The sky slowly transforms from deep indigo to soft lavender, then to the palest rose, as if the heavens themselves are whispering of hope and new beginnings. In this quiet hour before the world fully awakens, there is a profound stillness that speaks to the soul. The air carries the fresh scent of dew-kissed grass and the faint fragrance of wildflowers that have opened their petals to greet the morning light. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves of the ancient olive trees, creating a soft, rustling melody that seems to echo the breathing of the sleeping earth. Along its banks, the reeds sway gently, their movement creating ripples that catch and scatter the dawn's first rays. In the distance, the hills stand silhouetted against the brightening sky, their familiar contours offering a sense of continuity and comfort. Birds begin their morning chorus, their voices joining in a symphony of praise that rises toward the heavens. The sound is neither urgent nor demanding, but rather a gentle celebration of the gift of another day. Each note seems to carry within it the promise that life continues, that beauty persists, and that even in the deepest darkness, light will always return. The meadows, the streams, the distant mountains, all are bathed in this gentle illumination that speaks of divine presence and endless grace. In this moment, all creation seems to breathe as one, united in the quiet wonder of dawn's eternal return. The morning light filters through the tent walls where Seth sleeps peacefully beside his parents. Adam's weathered hand rests gently on his youngest son's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. Here in this quiet moment, there is something that feels like hope returning to their small family. Eve stirs softly, her eyes opening to find Adam already awake, watching their son with a tenderness that speaks of hard-won wisdom. They have learned to treasure these simple moments, these ordinary mornings that once seemed endless and are now understood to be precious gifts. Outside, the world continues its patient work of renewal. The garden they tend has grown fuller over the seasons, responding to their gentler touch. They have learned to work with the earth rather than against it, to listen to its needs and rhythms. The soil beneath their feet holds both memory and promise. Seth begins to wake, his small fingers curling around Adam's thumb with the unconscious trust of childhood. In his peaceful face they see neither the intensity that marked Cain nor the gentle brightness that was Abel's alone. Seth is simply himself, carrying his own quiet strength. As the family rises to meet the day, there is a sense of beginning again, of stories yet to be written. The past remains with them, neither forgotten nor unchanged, but no longer the weight that once seemed impossible to bear. In this new morning, they find the courage to believe that healing, like the sunrise, comes faithfully to those who wait through the darkness. The gentle breeze carries with it something different now. Something that feels like the very first breath of morning after the longest night. It moves through the valleys where once brothers walked, where once the earth knew both blessing and sorrow. The wind seems to whisper of things yet to come, of promises that stretch beyond the horizon of human understanding. In the distance, where the sky meets the earth in a soft embrace, there is a sense of anticipation. Not the sharp expectation of immediate change, but the quiet knowing that comes with cycles of seasons, with the patient turning of time itself. The very air seems to shimmer with possibility, as if creation itself is holding its breath in gentle anticipation. The stones that once witnessed conflict now seem to hum with a different song. They rest in the soil that has known both tears and rain, both endings and beginnings. Each pebble, each grain of sand, seems to participate in this quiet symphony of hope that rises like morning mist from the earth. Even the shadows fall differently now, softer somehow, as if they too are touched by this whisper of promise. They dance gently across the landscape, creating patterns that speak of renewal, of second chances, of the endless capacity for grace to find its way into the most wounded places. The stream continues its eternal song, but now it carries notes of something approaching, something beautiful and redemptive moving through the fabric of time itself. The water reflects not just the sky above, but hints of glory yet to be revealed, promises yet to be fulfilled in the patient unfolding of divine love. In this moment of profound stillness, the divine presence settles over everything like the softest blanket imaginable. The air itself seems to shimmer with a gentle warmth that speaks of infinite love and understanding. Every blade of grass beneath your feet feels blessed by this sacred touch, and you can sense the very atoms of creation humming with quiet joy. The light that surrounds you now is not harsh or blinding, but rather like the golden glow of the perfect sunset, embracing you completely. It feels as though you are being held by the universe itself, cradled in arms of pure compassion that have known you since before time began. Your breathing naturally deepens and slows as this divine embrace enfolds you more completely. Here in this sacred space, all the troubles and worries of the world seem to dissolve like morning mist. The weight you have been carrying in your shoulders melts away, replaced by a profound sense of peace that penetrates every cell of your being. You feel yourself sinking deeper into this divine comfort as if resting in the very heart of love itself. The presence whispers without words, communicating through feelings and gentle impressions that flow through your consciousness like a calm river. You understand without needing to think, feeling completely accepted and cherished just as you are. This is the embrace that has been waiting for you all along, patient and constant, ready to receive you whenever you are ready to rest. Your eyelids grow heavier as this divine love continues to surround you, creating the perfect sanctuary for peaceful sleep. Let yourself sink deeper into this holy comfort, knowing you are completely safe and infinitely loved. In the gentle quiet of evening's embrace, we find ourselves at the threshold of understanding. The story of Cain and Abel settles into our hearts like dewdrops on morning grass, each lesson absorbed slowly, peacefully into the fabric of our being. The ancient dust has settled. The echoes of voices have grown soft. What remains is the eternal truth that flows like a quiet river through all human experience, that our choices ripple outward in ways we cannot always foresee, touching lives across generations with their gentle or harsh consequences. In this sacred space between waking and sleeping, we hold the memory of two brothers whose paths diverged so dramatically. One chose the harder road of grace, the other surrendered to the whispers of resentment. Their story becomes our story, their choices, a mirror reflecting our own daily decisions between kindness and bitterness, between acceptance and jealousy. But the lessons of their lives continue to speak across the centuries, reminding us that we are indeed our brother's keeper, that love must triumph over envy, that redemption awaits even in our darkest moments. As you drift towards sleep, carry with you the gentle wisdom of ages, that every dawn offers new mercies, every heartbeat another chance to choose compassion over anger, understanding over judgment. In the morning light, we too can build altars of gratitude, tend gardens of peace, and walk the pathways of grace. Rest now in this ancient truth, and let it guide your dreams toward hope. The evening settles into its deepest quiet now, and in this sacred pause between day and night, we find ourselves contemplating the sleep of peace that comes after great storms have passed. The air itself seems to breathe more slowly, carrying with it the gentle wisdom of ages long past. In the soft darkness, we can almost hear the whispered prayers of those who have walked before us, their voices joining in a timeless chorus of hope and redemption. The weight of the day's burdens grows lighter with each passing moment, dissolving into the tender embrace of twilight. Each gentle rustle speaks of forgiveness found, of peace restored, of the eternal cycle of rest that follows even the deepest pain. Your breathing slows to match the rhythm of this ancient calm, and in this quietude, there is no need for words or explanations. Only the soft certainty that morning will come again, bringing with it new mercies and fresh beginnings. The night air carries the faint scent of jasmine and distant rain, promising renewal. In this moment, suspended between earth and sky, between memory and dream, we rest in the knowledge that peace is not just possible, but inevitable for those who seek it with gentle hearts. Sleep comes now like a soft benediction, wrapping around you with the tenderness of starlight on still water.